Hi guys, it's Ryan here with Sigma Survival, and today's video is about shelters in a heat wave. Okay guys, so I'm here in Portugal. We're in the middle of a heat wave. It is really hot, like the average temperature is about 45 degrees Celsius. The temperature on my thermometer on my wrist right now is 46 degrees Celsius. So yeah, I'm going to be testing multiple shelters, and I'm going to be using different thermometers. So I'm going to use the one on my wristwatch. Generally speaking, this is giving us a good idea of what the air temperature is right now. We're also going to be using this surface thermometer. So the ground surface where the shelters are at the moment is roughly 55.6 degrees Celsius. We're going to be testing the outer skin. We're going to be testing the air temperature inside and the general temperature of the wall inside, as well as me just getting in each one and seeing how it feels. Does it feel clammy in there? Does it feel humid? Is it too hot? Is it cooler? And which one is the best ultimately? Obviously I've tested these shelters in in the direct sunlight, in the midday sun. It's not even the hottest that it will be today either. The reason why I've done that is because I want to show you what it's like to be exposed in the sun. I want to show you what it's like if you've got miles and miles of nothing. Because when you're driving through Spain, there is just kilometres and kilometres of nothing sometimes. And if you was in a bad situation, you've got to set up a shelter quick. You've got to prioritise that over getting yourself out of there. You've got to travel at night. Now, obviously, if I could find a shaded area, it's a lot cooler in those areas. We'll do a temperature reading now and show you what that looks like. So in an old ruin behind me, I'll show you what it's like inside because the stone keeps it nice and cool. I'll show you what it's like under the trees, and we can compare that to the ground temperature in those environments. Another thing as well is obviously I would try and set up a shelter in the shaded area if I could. Why wouldn't I? But like I say, we're looking at exposed conditions. Okay guys, so we're inside this stone ruin, and I'm just going to take a temperature reading of the stone wall to show you how much cooler it is inside. 33.7, that's what we're looking at, and we're hot. I'm doing this higher, so let me get further in, right into this little corner here. 32.7. There's a lot of flies in here that are making refuge themselves. So this is a more shaded area. As you can see, there's a building behind me there, but let's have a look at how well this is shaded. So as you can see, there's quite an area around me, and let's have a look at the ground temperature just here. See if we can get that down any closer. Let's look at the shaded area more. 39 degrees. Let's get closer to the base of the tree. That's just air temperature. 35.1. 36.6. So it's definitely cooler under the tree. Like, you know, when the weather's approaching 50 degrees Celsius, you know, you're better off in a shaded area like this, but you won't always have access to that. Bear in mind that there's also a lot of rocks here that, you know, are probably cool in the area as well. Let's do it. Okay guys, so here we've got an old army issue, a French army issue tent. It's canvas, it's single skin. It's pretty dark inside. I think that this one will be the hottest. Haven't tested it inside yet. So I'm going to test the temperatures now using this surface thermometer gun. So we're going to test the outer surface, we're going to test the ground around it, and we're going to test the inside. I'm going to get inside as well, see how it feels. But in all fairness, you'd have to spend a bit more time than just a few minutes to really get a feel for how it is. But anyway, so let's do the outer surface. 54.5 degrees Celsius on the outside, and it is hot to touch, but it's radiating the heat through, so it doesn't feel that hot because the heat's potentially going inside. Let's look at the ground temperature next to it. 56.9. So it's not much different to the ground temperature, which is to be expected. The bad point about this is there's metal zips, so if it's directly in the sun, it's going to get real hot real quick. So if we just take this inner flap here, 38.7, so it is cooler inside. Let me get inside. You may struggle to see this now, but honestly, it's hot as hell. So I think one way that this could be improved is to insulate the floor underneath before or after you've laid the tent out, because the floor itself is 54 degrees, something like that. So I'm going to take another reading. 38.9 is the reading of the floor in here. So 38.9 degrees is definitely better than 45 degrees, but it's going to cook you. Okay guys, so this is more of an improvised shelter, or in some cases people will choose this over a tent. In this sort of environment, sometimes a tent is better because it's a sealed unit and it keeps some of the poisonous insects and snakes and things like that away. But you know, generally speaking, this is something that can be improvised out of many things that you can find. 49.7, let's have a reading over here. Let's get the sand next to it. 54.1, so it's averaging at around about 50 degrees, let's say. Let's do the outer skins. So this is the outer skin, 55.9 degrees. Inner skin, 39.8. Okay guys, it's really cool in here. It's the sort of thing where you just lie down in. Let's do the inner skin. 39.8 degrees. 39.6. Okay guys, one thing I will say, whilst the readings are similar to the other tent, it definitely feels cooler under here. The breeze is hitting me, the air gap. This actually feels cool to the touch. It doesn't feel like it's 41 or 40 degrees or 38 degrees, whatever the readings were, because they were mixed. I think that might just be the air temperature that's interfering with the reading, because this is an infrared thermometer. Okay guys, so I'm going to do a temperature reading for this tent. I can't remember what the make is. I think it's Gillette or something like that. Gillette, whatever they call it. It's a little 3-man tent, double skinned. Let's do a temperature reading of the ground, then the outer skin, then let's go inside, get a feel for it and do the readings inside. Okay guys, so let's have a look at the outside temperature of this. This is by far the hottest area, I can tell you just by feeling. Just says high. That means that it's actually probably higher than like 50 degrees. I've got it on the surface setting. If you can see that, that's surface and the other side is for body temperature. So that's too high to even read. So that means it's above 50 degrees Celsius. Sorry, above 60 degrees Celsius or something like that. The outer temperature. So this is hotter than 50, 60 degrees odd, something like that. So if we go inside, this is very uncomfortable. It's very hot in here, like a sauna. Let's try and get a reading of the wall. It just says high and it's flashing red. So it would have been flashing red outside, but the sun wouldn't show it. Let's have a look at the floor. 41.4 degrees. So this is a sauna, guys. This could get you killed. Okay guys, so as you can see, this tent here is a sauna. The other tent is a sauna. You can't stay in these shelters. I mean, what they are good for, if you've got both options, is for drawing the heat in the day, and then at night time you've got a warmer shelter, because the temperatures do drop still. Some of the leading causes of death, or the highest rates of hypothermia deaths, actually occur in some of the more desert-like states in the United States. And this is because in the night time it can drop to below freezing, believe it or not. So you know, you have to think about how you're gonna survive long term, and if you've got something that's enclosed like this that's attracting the heat and pulling it in, then that's good. And believe it or not, if you're caught in an open space like this, that will still keep you cooler than being outside, but you know, it's still not great. You could probably perish in a tent like that, whereas the improvised one to my left, which we'll have a look at in a moment, is much better. Anyway, I'm going to finish the video in that shelter because it's much cooler. Oh, what a relief. I'll tell you what guys, it is so hot, it's ridiculous. This is heat wave weather and I am just practicing some survival skills. So obviously, you know, in this environment I do carry plenty of water. I also carry a heat stroke and heat illness specific first aid kit, which I'm going to go into at some point. You know, it's very, very important to be prepared. If you're out in this sort of wilderness and you are not prepared, you could die quite easily. Like if you sprain your ankle and you get caught out in the middle of an area like this, you'll cook within hours and you'll be dead. So, you know, just bear that in mind guys. And if you don't cook within hours, you know, by the time night time hits and you're in a state because you've got heat stroke, you know, your temperature regulation is going to be all over the place and you're just going to perish anyway. So bear that in mind. This shelter system is by far the best. A couple of tarps. I've got a ground tarp just to protect me from, you know, things on the ground really, like sharp thorns, there's ants all over the place. This just gives me that extra level of protection. And if I was to put a foil blanket down on the floor, it would insulate me a bit better from the hot floor. So we kind of want to minimize as much of the heat as possible. This is an open area as well, bear in mind. So if I was to go into a shaded area, we'll have a look at the temperature readings in a moment. So under tree shade, or you know, the shade of a rock or something like that, you're going to be a lot better off, especially if you build a shelter like this as well to protect you even further. But generally speaking, you know, the idea of this video is to give you options if you're caught out in an intense heat wave like this and you're in open terrain, and you know you've got miles and miles of terrain to cover, or kilometers and kilometers, and you've got limited resources and you just need to hunker down and stay as cool as possible. Now, the way I'm sitting right now probably isn't the best way to sit. If I was in this situation, I would just lie down and I would look up towards the sky, because if I was lost, I'd be trying to look for aircraft going over the top, and then hopefully I've got a signal mirror or something like that. I wouldn't want to be using flares in this environment, because if I create a wildfire, I'm done for, because I'm not going to be able to get away from it fast enough in this tinderbox of a terrain. So it's just things to bear in mind. Shelter from the elements is the most important thing. I'm going to be doing a video soon on the priorities of survival actually. So shelter is pretty much one of the first priorities. It's not the first, but it's one of the first priorities in my mind for keeping you alive essentially. So we'll look at that in another video soon. But yeah, this is by far the best shelter. It's basically 2 tarps. In weather that isn't very rainy, you know, you can put like a cotton sheet or something like that over the top. That'll dissipate the heat. The brighter the colours as well, the better. Sorry, there's flies everywhere. The brighter the colours, the better, because they're going to reflect the heat as well. A foil blanket would also do a great job of not only reflecting heat, but also attracting the attention of aircraft, and you know, that is a signal in itself, you know, for help. If you're in an environment that potentially could rain, or you want a waterproof structure on the top, you could just put a cotton sheet or a canvas tarp or something that's not as waterproof, let's say, on the inside, and put your most waterproof tarp on the outside. And I'll tell you what, that tarp is hot to the touch. I don't even want to touch it. So yeah, anyway, that was a lot of talking. I just wanted to go through a few things while I'm here. Thanks for watching guys. I really appreciate the views. I really appreciate you following me on this like survival journey. Like, it's all a journey for me, and I've been building up these skill sets for years. And you know, coming to somewhere like Portugal where we're in the middle of a heat wave, is like the total contrast to the video where I did in the middle of a snowstorm that come in the UK, where I just managed to practice some snowstorm and blizzard survival skills. Now I'm practicing in the polar opposite, and I feel blessed to be able to practice in these different environments, and I do plan to go to the desert at some point in Spain. I also plan to just practice in as many environments as possible. Let me know in the comments what you think. Hopefully this was useful. Hopefully this science slash survival experiment was useful. Obviously, you know, the temperatures here are really hot. I've spent time living in the desert in the UAE, and I'll tell you what, like the temperatures here are roughly the same as what it was over there on average at the moment. So yeah, it is super hot. Anyway, thanks for watching, and until next time.